Today's star is me, the bride, so the wheelchair woman should just go home. But since your husband is a handsome guy, he can stay."
The wheelchair woman refers to me, the groom's sister. "Sure, you're the star bride. But with that one deadly comment, you're going to lose your spot in the limelight. You can't take back what you said. It's too late now, sister-in-law. I'm Sarah, 32 years old. I had a car accident in high school, leaving me paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, I've been in a wheelchair. Even so, I don't just stay cooped up at home. I go out alone wherever I want. The reason I'm always so positive is because of the people who support me. Thanks to my older brother, Ryan, who's 5 years older, and my childhood friend, Kevin. Going out in a wheelchair is even more fun when Kevin is with me. Kevin and I were married 4 years ago, and we've been happily living ever since. I was hit by a speeding car behind the high school while waiting for Kevin. No matter how you look at it, Kevin isn't to blame, yet he seems to have decided to stay by my side for life. Now my brother has some great news, looking excited.
"Sarah, I'm finally getting married."
He's had terrible luck with women until now. Honestly, it's a bit awkward for me to say this, but he looks good and seems attractive at first glance. However, he's too nice and easily deceived, and while he's had a few relationships, he's often been cheated on and left. It's hard to believe the day has finally come for him to get married. Really? That's awesome, Ryan.
Thanks.
What's she like? She's not the kind of person who would cheat on you, right? I asked jokingly. Then my brother smiled wryly and said,
"Don't bring that up. I'm in a good mood about getting married right now."
Sorry. It's just that you've always had bad luck with women. So, what's your destined partner like?
Her name's Laura, and she loves cute things and is a clean freak. I want you and Kevin to meet her soon, okay?
Of course. My husband and I were set to meet my brother and his fiancée, Laura, before the wedding. The place was a stylish Italian restaurant, which was apparently Laura's favorite. On the appointed day, while my husband and I were already seated at the table waiting, my brother and Laura arrived about 30 minutes late.
Sorry we're late. Laura couldn't decide on her dress.
My brother apologized to us. Next to him stood a beautiful woman with long hair styled forwardly, wearing a delicate pink dress.
This is my fiancée, Laura. Laura, this is my sister Sarah and her husband, Kevin.
My brother introduced us. Nice to meet you, Laura. I'm Sarah. I followed my brother's lead and introduced myself. Then Laura looked at me, and her expression twisted. She seemed confused.
"Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Laura. Your sister is in a wheelchair?"
Yeah, didn't I mention it?
"I think I heard she had an accident in the past, but since I heard she was married, I thought she was just a normal person."
Laura said, looking closely at me. Normal person. Treating someone as not normal on a first meeting. That comment stuck with me, but I figured some people might be surprised. I decided to let it slide. "Oh, but I can live a normal life, so don't worry about it," I said, but Laura quickly looked away from me. Her gaze landed on my husband, Kevin, who was sitting across from me.
Are you Sarah's husband?
Yes, I'm Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Kevin, huh? Wow, you're super handsome. I'm surprised.
She immediately used a friendly tone with him. She directed a completely different smile at Kevin than she did at me. Wait, sure, Kevin has always been the most handsome guy in class, but aren't you my brother's fiancé? What's with that attitude? I felt a bit suspicious about Laura. After that, we listened to how my brother and Laura met while having dinner. Believe it or not, they met through a dating app. They matched based on hobbies and preferences and started dating after meeting in person. Before long, the conversation shifted to Laura and Kevin. Laura seemed really interested in Kevin, asking all sorts of questions.
By the way, Kevin, you're really handsome. You could be on TV or model or something.
That's a bit much, my husband said with a wry smile.
Really? You were pretty popular in school, right? You must have a lot of experience with women. I mean, it seems like people wouldn't leave you alone.
Come on, I'm sitting right next to him as his wife. Then she went so far as to say,
Actually, Kevin, you look a lot like my ex. That's why I'm so curious about you.
I was truly shocked. Looking over at my husband, I could see he was at a loss for words. As for my brother, he replied casually.
Oh, really? That's surprising.
He seemed completely unaware that his fiancée was showing interest in my husband. I could see why he hadn't had lasting relationships before, but would it be different this time? I felt pretty anxious about my brother marrying her. The dinner was filled with an awkward atmosphere, but we managed to finish it, and my husband and I went home. I decided to share my suspicions about Laura with my husband. Hey, do you think it's okay for my brother and Laura to get married? It felt like Laura was flirting with you a bit.
Do you still agree?
My husband looked anxious, just like I did. But Ryan doesn't seem to mind, and that might just be Laura's normal way of interacting with people. Even if we're worried, it's ultimately up to them to decide to get married. As long as my brother is happy, that's what matters. Plus, Laura and I just met. Maybe we can gradually understand each other better. I pushed down my anxious feelings and decided to think that way. However, a few days later, I heard a shocking truth from my husband. He ran into Laura at the station on his way home from work, and she approached him. My husband mentioned his workplace briefly during the dinner party. He said Laura was at the nearest station to his office. If they just happened to run into each other, that would be one thing, but I'm pretty sure Laura works along a completely different train line. Yet, when my husband headed to the station, Laura was there waiting for him. Since that day, Laura's stalking didn't stop. In fact, she was even there waiting for him late at night when he was working overtime. This is definitely not normal behavior. Shouldn't we talk to the police department about this? However, she is my brother's fiancée, and she approaches him with a vibe of wow, what a coincidence. There's no such thing as daily coincidences, but I can't just report someone who might become family without a valid reason. My husband and I decided that he would meet me at the station after work. On the day we were supposed to meet, I arrived a bit early at the platform where my husband usually meets Laura. And there she was, waiting. Kevin wasn't there yet, so Laura had no reason to wait. I decided to approach her. From my wheelchair, I had to look up at her. Oh, Laura, what a coincidence. Such a surprise. Oh, Sarah, what are you doing here? Laura jumped a bit at my voice. I'm here to meet my husband for dinner, and I'm waiting for him. How about you? Are you waiting for someone? I thought your workplace was quite far from here. I pretended not to know what had been going on.
I just happened to have some business over here. But really, dinner with Kevin. In that outfit?
Huh? Laura said this as if looking down on me. Well, it's true that I'm not dressed up today. I'm in a simple shirt and skirt, not exactly fancy. I didn't go all out on makeup either, but what does she mean by that outfit? Oh, well, I just figured we'd go for a casual dinner, so I'm dressed normally. After 4 years of marriage, this is how it is. I stopped myself from adding that we're a happy couple.
That's shocking. Just because you've been married for 4 years doesn't mean you can neglect your appearance. I mean, are you really Kevin's wife? I can't believe it.
Laura suddenly switched gears and said this. Wait, what? I was taken aback by her change in attitude. She is friendly in front of my brother and husband, but her attitude towards me is so harsh.
Honestly, I don't understand how you, being in a wheelchair, could marry Kevin. He's so handsome. If I had met him first, it would have been me marrying him. God is so cruel.
What is she talking about? Even though she has my brother as a fiance, Laura is off in her own world, fuming over her wild fantasies. I was completely taken aback and couldn't say anything. Just then, my husband arrived.
Sarah, sorry to keep you waiting. Oh, and Laura, good evening.
Oh, Kevin. Good evening. It's nice to see you again. At this rate, it feels like we're dating with how often we keep running into each other.
She said to my husband with a big smile. Does she want to steal my husband away? I can't help but think that.
Well, we have plans, so we've got to go.
That's too bad. I wanted to chat more. But if you have a promise, I guess there's nothing I can do.
She replied, looking at me with resentment. As we turned to leave, I could feel Laura's lingering gaze on our backs. After we got home, my husband immediately asked me how it went.
So, how was it? You talked to Laura, right?
I shared with him everything she had said to me.
Well, she's quite a character.
Do you think Ryan will be okay? I was starting to worry about him. He's had such terrible luck with women in the past, so I really hope this time it works out.
Well, I think it's just us who find her difficult, and if he's okay with her, then I guess that's what matters.
My husband said, "That's true." There must be some closeness between my brother and Laura that we don't know about, and my brother surely understands her personality. Despite our inner worries, before we knew it, it was the day of my brother's wedding. Of course, we as family were invited to the wedding. Our names were on the guest list, but when we arrived at the venue, the staff stopped us. We're the groom's sister and her husband. Our names are on the guest list, right?
Yes, you're definitely invited. But could you please wait a moment? I'm asked to have the lady called in when the sister and her husband arrived.
the staff said, looking confused. So, we waited at the entrance when Laura, wearing a pure white wedding dress and holding her dress up, approached us. Her long hair was delicately styled, her makeup was flawless, and she looked like a princess. "Laura, congratulations. You look beautiful," I said, but then came the completely outrageous words from this princess, looking me up and down.
Of course, I'm the star of the show today. But still, even though you're all dressed up, it's just that, with you being in a wheelchair.
Huh?
Kevin is really handsome, though. He looks great in formal wear. It's amazing to have such a good-looking brother. Let's take pictures together later.
Laura spoke to my husband with a smile completely different from the one she had for me. My husband replied,
Sure, let's take a couple's photo later.
But Laura said nonchalantly,
Really? I wanted to take a picture with just the two of us. A two-shot would look like a wedding photo, right?
Wait, aren't you about to have a wedding? Is that something you should be saying? And yet, Laura, by the way, can't we not go into the venue now?
Kevin is, of course, welcome. But, Sarah, you should go home.
Excuse me, I'll have you know this is also my brother's wedding. It would be strange for me not to attend as his sister, right? Besides, do you have any right to say something like that to me? I said, my irritation starting to show. Since my voice was a bit loud, people at the entrance who were checking in paused to look over. But it seemed Laura was oblivious to the surroundings as she continued to hurl heartless words at me.
What are you talking about? Today is a wedding. The star of the wedding is the bride, which means I'm the main event, and I'm going to make this the most outstanding reception. Having someone in a wheelchair just stands out in a bad way, and there's no benefit to that. Besides, having someone like that around will ruin the appearance. Just go home. But Kevin can stay.
Laura said this with such confidence, as if she thought my husband would just go along with it. But that was never going to happen. Moreover,
What do you mean, Laura? How can you say that Sarah in a wheelchair ruins the appearance? You know Sarah is in a wheelchair, right?
my brother had appeared behind Laura, having heard the commotion. He looked shocked. I felt guilty for not having warned him about Laura's true nature. Laura flinched at my brother's voice and quickly turned around with a forced smile.
No, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously.
She tried to brush it off. Kevin said, stepping in.
No, that's not really a joke. I can tolerate insults towards my wife. Plus, it's inappropriate to keep showing up to meet someone else's husband right before a wedding.
Laura fell silent. My brother, with a pale face, said,
Did you really do that? Last week, you canceled our date, saying you had to work. And then you went to meet Kevin.
Apparently, Laura had prioritized stalking my husband over a date with her fiance. Upon hearing this, my brother lowered his gaze for a moment, but then raised his head to look directly at Laura. Laura, caught under my brother's serious gaze, briefly averted her eyes. All right, I understand. Then I'll do as the star says, he said, turning to the guests who had already entered the venue.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for showing such disgraceful behavior despite coming from far away. The bride, who is the star of the show, asked my sister to leave, so I, the groom, will be leaving as well. Therefore, today's wedding reception will be cancelled.
Wait a minute, Ryan.
Laura's face turned pale, and she began to panic. And with my brother's words as a catalyst, the guests already present started to stand up. One by one, they began to leave. It seemed the commotion at the reception had spread to the guests inside the venue. Although there were supposed to be around 300 guests invited, only a handful remained in the venue. Laura noticed this and started to freak out.
Wait, everyone. What the groom just said was a little joke. Don't take it seriously. The reception is about to start. Come on, Ryan, stop everyone. Why would they leave all at once with one word like that joke? With this, I won't be able to have my wedding,
she exclaimed while grabbing my brother's arm. I felt I could no longer hold back and decided to enlighten Laura. Laura, do you know who the guests are today?
I think it's mostly Ryan's relatives, coworkers, and friends.
Actually, today's guest list totals around 300 people from both families, and there's a reason for that. My family has a long-standing tradition of having large weddings, and this reception included all relatives. That number is roughly 100 people. So, since a third of the guests are my relatives, there's no way they would be in a good mood about insulting me as the sister. Of course, same with Ryan. Even if it was a joke, it's too malicious. Would you want someone like that in your family? Besides, do you even understand Ryan's work?
He's the sales department manager, right?
Do you know what company he works for? It's a company that makes care equipment, like wheelchairs and nursing beds. Oh, right. So, Laura still seemed unaware of the gravity of her actions. Well, let me enlighten her. The guests related to Ryan's work are people involved in care equipment, trying to support those who need care. Insulting me, someone in a wheelchair, in front of them only reveals your own prejudice. Of course, Ryan's friends know him well. He actually started working at his current company because of me. He wanted to be involved in care equipment to help me live more comfortably. His friends all know that, so if someone with a prejudice against people with disabilities is marrying him, they won't feel like celebrating. As the department manager, my brother had many superiors and subordinates, and there were about 70 guests related to his work and their partners. While he might not be the most perceptive when it comes to women, my brother is calm when it comes to decisions, and once he makes up his mind, he follows through. This is why he has earned trust in his work and is progressing well in his career. Moreover, due to his kind nature, he has a wide circle of friends, and about 70 family members of those friends had been invited. In other words, by saying what she did, Laura not only angered my brother, but also started a conflict with around 240 guests. This is why, following my brother's declaration, the guests he had invited began to leave one after another. However, there was one thing I didn't understand. It was about Laura's friends leaving. I noticed beautiful women around Laura, who were the same age, leaving one by one. Laura seemed to be desperately trying to hold on to her own friends.
Hey, Mary, why are you leaving? I invited you.
Laura called out to one of her friends who was trying to leave. Mary, who was part of a group about to head out, turned around and said,
You told us that we could catch a good-looking guy at this wedding, and now everyone's leaving. If there's no one to catch, there's no point in being here. Let's go to a mixer instead.
With that, she left. It was true that Laura's guests were all beautiful women, but it seemed there was a reason for that. Most of Laura's guests weren't there to celebrate. They were hoping to find their own potential marriage partners. In other words, it appeared she didn't have any true friends. Well, that's probably due to her personality. Laura's face was now beyond pale. It was white. But then she seemed to have an idea and hurried over to my brother.
Hey, Ryan, reconsider. What I said earlier was just a joke. Today's already ruined, but let's reschedule and have a proper wedding next time.
She stubbornly tried to dismiss it as a joke. Hearing this, my brother said,
Even if it was just a joke, to say something like that to my sister in a wheelchair is shocking. And to be following Kevin around.
Ryan, don't believe what Kevin says. He invited me out on a date, and after that, I just told him to go home because Sarah was acting weird and suspecting me of cheating. I didn't do anything wrong.
Well, I'm kind of impressed that she could come up with such a lie at this point. But there's no way someone who lies like this can make my brother happy. I decided it was time to bring out my secret weapon. It was a small act of revenge against Laura, who had made fun of me all this time. Hey Ryan, just so you know, here's a recording of the conversation I had with Laura when she was stalking Kevin at the station. I handed him a small voice recorder. Actually, when we met at the station the other day, I thought it might be useful, so I prepared a recorder and recorded our conversation. It captured her insulting me and expressing her desire to marry my husband as evidence. Upon hearing this, my brother sighed and looked at Laura with disdain. Nevertheless,
Ryan, that's been edited. Please believe me.
Laura still wasn't giving up. She sat down right next to my brother, grabbed his arm, and looked up at him with tears welling in her eyes. This was probably one of her signature moves that had worked on countless men before. But my brother shook off her grasp and said calmly,
I really can't marry you.
Huh? Why? Don't you trust me, Ryan? Don't believe that sister and her husband.
No, I do trust them. The truth is, Kevin would never cheat on you. He's been my best friend since childhood.
Seriously, why would you trust your sister's husband like that? Maybe he's just being forced to say that.
Laura's demeanor shifted from submissive to confrontational, pressing my brother. However,
Oh, that's not going to happen.
my brother replied confidently. Both my husband and I echoed, that's not happening.
Why?
Because he's been my best friend since we were kids. I've known him for a long time, and Kevin has always been devoted to Sarah, so there's absolutely no way he would cheat with you.
Wow, it's kind of embarrassing to hear that from someone else.
My husband said, slightly blushing. I felt a bit bashful too.
I trust these two. I must have misunderstood you all along. I wouldn't want to marry a woman who harbors prejudices. So I can't marry you.
With that, Laura exclaimed and started to cry loudly without caring about her surroundings.
Oh my gosh, I finally got a handsome husband and a brother to brag about. And now this. My dream reverse harem is ruined.
It seemed Laura's true goal was to surround herself with good-looking guys. What does she even think marriage is? Her once beautiful makeup was now ruined by tears, Her eyes were dark, and her lipstick had smeared, making her mouth look unusually red and distorted. She looked like something out of a horror movie. A young relative, witnessing this, exclaimed,
"Mom, look! There's a ghost from that movie we saw the other day."
The mother quickly replied,
Hey, don't look. Come here, we're going home.
"But I've never seen a real ghost before. This is amazing."
The boy's high-pitched voice likely reached everyone still in the room. For a moment, there was silence, then everyone began to shake with suppressed laughter as they started to prepare to leave. Of course, this reaction was not lost on Laura.
The star of the show is a ghost now. No way.
She muttered in a low voice, then began to cry even louder. To summarize, Laura not only got rejected in front of everyone, but she was also called a ghost and became the laughingstock. It's quite ridiculous that the one who judges others based on looks is now being laughed at for her own appearance. Laura seemed to be in such shock from crying that she just sat there, unable to move. Eventually, she was dragged back to the waiting room by her relatives and the staff.
Well, I guess we should head home too.
My brother said, and the three of us left together. Fortunately, since my brother and Laura had not registered their marriage yet, his marital status wouldn't be marked by a divorce. Since then, Laura has contacted my brother, claiming that her shameful behavior had become known to her relatives and friends and demanded that he take responsibility. Apparently, she said,
Because of you all, I'm now called a ghost among my relatives. What are you going to do about it?
What is she talking about? This is all her own doing. Of course, my brother flatly rejected her nonsense. At first, Laura seemed unwilling to give up, but when she mentioned involving a lawyer, she suddenly stopped contacting him. After all, she had canceled her date with her fiance to stalk my husband, so she must have known she was in the wrong. After that, I heard through the grapevine that Laura, feeling lonely about not getting married, became immersed in host clubs. She reportedly spent large amounts of money every night on her favorite host, going into debt and ultimately getting cut off by her family. Now, it seems she's working in a nightclub to pay off her debts. She was once like a princess when I first met her. To go from that to being called a ghost and falling so far is truly pitiful. As for my brother, I thought he would be down in the dumps after everything, but surprisingly, he wasn't. A company associate who attended my brother's wedding learned about the cancellation and offered to introduce him to a better wife, his business partner's daughter. This daughter turned out to have a kind personality, completely opposite to Laura's, and I felt like we'd get along well. They have just started dating, and while there hasn't been any talk of marriage yet, she has already become friendly with my husband and me, going on trips together as a group of 4. I believe this woman could truly make my brother happy. When that time comes, I will genuinely celebrate my brother's marriage.
What kind of place is a public housing anyway? It's probably full of poor people, right?
Well, maybe there aren't many wealthy people living there. I answered, and my sister-in-law let out a characteristic laugh, sharp and high-pitched. Her piercing gaze locked onto me, not letting go. That look of hers was a little crazy, almost dangerous. My name is Nancy. I'm a 24-year-old office worker. I have a fiance who is 12 years older than me. He's a regular, stable company employee named Richard. We met 2 years ago when I was a senior in college. I remember him clearly because he came into the cafe I was working at, carrying a bunch of large shopping bags like he'd just finished running errands. Since I was working part-time to make ends meet, cutting back on leisure, he quickly became familiar with my face too. We exchanged a few words here and there, and as graduation approached, he invited me out to dinner. To be honest, plenty of customers had done the same. But in his case, he came across as very serious, which left a good impression, so I accepted his invitation.
I want you to think about marriage. I'm not saying this because I'm older than you and rushing into it. I want to marry you.
At our first meal together, he proposed right away. I was so caught off guard I couldn't even respond, but he just smiled warmly and said,
I'm sorry to spring this on you, but for me, dating you makes me think about marriage. I'm not unsure or hesitant. I fully intend to accept you as you are. That's all.
His words resonated with me deeply. After spending time together, going on a few more dates and hanging out on weekends, I started to grow fond of him. It took 6 months before I agreed to start officially dating him. But there was still something I hadn't told him. During college, due to financial reasons, I had worked part-time as a hostess at a club in Manhattan. It wasn't something shady, and I wasn't hiding it from anyone. But I hadn't mentioned it because I knew how much he disliked the nightlife industry, and I just couldn't bring myself to say it. Since he said he saw marriage in our future, I decided to come clean about my past work experience.
No way.
One day, we met up for a date, and to my surprise, he brought his mom along. She was quite tall and wearing something flashy. A green skirt with a red shirt covered in black polka dots. She looked just like a watermelon. I thought she was his mom, but he introduced her as his sister. As I looked closer, I realized I knew her. Oh, nice to meet you. I started to say, but she cut me off.
No.
I understood right away. Nice to meet you. I'm Nancy. I looked up at her, pretending it was our first time meeting, and introduced myself. He didn't notice anything and said,
I told my sister first when I started thinking about marriage. She really wanted to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Linda. I've been close with Richard since we were kids. I'm glad we could finally meet today.
His sister's speech was so flat. She sounded like a ventriloquist's dummy, unnatural and robotic. When he went to the bathroom, Linda quickly leaned in and said in a hushed voice,
I don't want my brother or parents to know about my past in the nightlife business. You feel the same, right? So let's keep this between us.
Just then, I saw him coming back, and she instantly put on a big smile. It was hard to keep up with her quick changes. We ended up spending the entire day together, the three of us. Linda linked arms with him and walked off briskly, taking long strides. They were both tall, with long legs, so their steps were large. I'm short and petite, so I had to jog to keep up.
You're so slow, and you're so small and plain in that outfit. I almost lost you in the crowd.
I told them, well, this is where I'll leave you too. Enjoy your sibling dinner without me. I was exhausted from trying to keep up with them and just wanted to go home. Plus, with Linda around, I couldn't bring up my hostess job in Manhattan, something she had said she'd keep secret. I decided I'd talk to him about it another time. He seemed a little disappointed when I said I was leaving, but Linda firmly grabbed his arm and waved goodbye with a wide grin. On the train ride home, I couldn't stop thinking about Linda, my sister-in-law-to-be, who I had once worked with at the same club. Linda. Tall, flashy, and always wearing low-cut outfits. I remembered her as a loud and attention-grabbing person. I never expected she'd end up becoming my sister-in-law. It was a bad twist of fate because I knew how mean she could be. About 2 years ago, while working at the club in Manhattan, I came in one day to find the dress the club had given me ripped to shreds. Shocked, I showed it to the madam of the club, but she just handed me a new dress, saying it wasn't uncommon. I had no choice but to wear the replacement, which was a revealing dress with a plunging neckline and open back. A dress that looked almost identical to what Linda was wearing that night. The customers found it hilarious and kept comparing us, saying we were opposites. But the thing that made Linda the most upset was when one of the customers joked that I looked like her daughter and she was my mom. Linda got so worked up over that comment, and after the club closed, she tried to grab me while drunk. Just before things got out of hand, the madam stepped in and stopped her. But what shocked me was what I found out later. It turned out Linda was the one who had slashed my dress. She had tried to mess with me, but it ended up backfiring on her. And she held a grudge against me for it, blaming my presence at the club for her misfortune. After that, I did my best to avoid any contact with her. But the stress of always having to be on guard against her and her nastiness wore me down. Eventually, I quit my hostess job in Manhattan and switched to working at the cafe. And now Linda was going to be my sister-in-law. What's more, she and Richard seemed really close. That night, Richard called me.
Sorry about bringing my sister along all of a sudden today. I wanted to make sure you got home safe, so I'm calling.
I made it back just fine. Sorry I didn't text you. I didn't want to intrude on your sibling time.
Speaking of that, Nancy, did you want to tell me something today?
Yeah. I was touched by how well he understood me, even without me saying much. So I decided to tell him over the phone about my past job in the nightlife business. I kept quiet about Linda, though.
I see. Wow, that's surprising. But you're not doing that kind of work anymore, right?
I reassured him that I'd quit, and he seemed relieved. Then I heard someone talking in the background on his end.
Linda won't take no for an answer. She insists on staying the night.
I was about to ask him not to mention my hostess job to her.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
He hung up suddenly, and I was left feeling a little uneasy. Not long after that, as I was leaving work, I was stopped by a familiar tall woman. It was Linda. Honestly, I'd been expecting her. She approached me slowly as I turned around.
Let's have a chat.
She grabbed my arm and dragged me to a nearby bar. Linda gave me a hard shove from behind, and I stumbled into the restaurant. I ended up almost falling into the arms of a passing waiter.
Hey, what's with you? Aren't you getting married? And here you are draping yourself all over another guy.
I quickly apologized to the waiter and stepped away from him. The waiter mentioned they were full, but he led us to some seats at the counter.
So, you told Richard about my job in the nightlife business, didn't you?
No, I only told him about myself. I didn't say anything about you.
Don't lie. After he hung up with you, Richard was acting weird. Usually he'd sleep with me, but last night he refused and seemed mad.
Sleep together. I mentally jotted down her shocking comment in my mind. I didn't say anything. Suddenly, Linda started talking about her time as a hostess in Manhattan.
You knew all along, didn't you? About me, the owner, and Morris. Then the madam got involved, and Mindy got mad and started crying to stop it. Annie punched me in the face, and Julia helped me out, but in the end, I was the only one forced to quit.
There were so many people involved that I couldn't keep track and nervously asked Linda, could you explain that again? Apparently, she had been dating both the owner and a customer, Morris, which led to a huge mess. It was like a dramatic soap opera, full of tangled emotions and jealousy, straight out of a soap opera. This is all new to me, but, have you already broken up with both of them?
Not really. Neither of them will let me go. The owner won't let me into the club when I show up, so I dumped trash in front of the entrance the other day. I call Morris several times a day, but when he answers, I can't say anything, so I just hang up.
I didn't know how to respond to her story and decided to give up. I felt like I'd just heard something I was never supposed to hear. Before I knew it, Linda was drinking heavily and soon became so drunk she couldn't stand. I'll call Richard to come pick you up. Just as I tried to call, Linda grabbed my phone and threw it across the room. With no other choice, I got the waiter to help me put her in a cab and headed to the address she gave me. When we arrived, it was just a regular apartment building, but inside, I discovered yet another shocking secret. When we reached her place, the stench hit me. It was a hoarder's nightmare. Suddenly snapping out of her drunken stupor, Linda waved us away. She slammed the door in my face, and the waiter and I exchanged confused glances. Afterward, I wasn't sure how or even if I should tell Richard about what happened with his sister. As I debated, the day of his visit to meet my family for the first time drew closer.
Linda insists on coming along. She says she's taking the place of our parents.
I couldn't say no, so I agreed to let her come.
Excuse me, but didn't you have a hard time raising Nancy?
Linda suddenly asked my mother during the visit.
Yes, after my husband passed away, we discovered he had debts, and we lost our home. My children also had to face financial struggles. But why do you ask?
Linda gave a cruel smile and said,
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but this tiny apartment, these cheap-looking furniture pieces that seem like they cost a few bucks, and the dollar shop cups, it's just obvious you don't have much money, isn't it? Especially if this is all you could manage to host your daughter's future husband.
My mother looked down, ashamed.
I'm sorry.
Seeing my mother apologize made me incredibly sad, and I was about to snap back at Linda when Richard stepped in.
I think this is a very cozy home. I'd much rather live a sensible life than spend money decorating just for show. I'm happy to see Nancy was raised with such values.
His words brought tears to both my mother's and my eyes. Linda glared at the three of us before storming out without saying goodbye. Then it was my turn to visit his parents' house. And sure enough, Linda was there again. I wasn't surprised, given that it was Richard's family home, but after seeing how she treated my mother, I feared she'd try to cause trouble again. After I greeted his parents and Linda, his parents welcomed me warmly.
I can't believe such a young lady is going to be Richard's wife. We're so happy.
Absolutely. She's such a lovely young woman.
Turning away in displeasure at her parents' words, Linda said,
Don't you think Nancy isn't a good fit for our family? I visited her home the other day, and I heard she struggled financially and even worked in the nightlife industry.
Richard's mother gasped at Linda's words.
Nightlife work. Is that true, Nancy?
Richard's father's expression also changed immediately upon hearing the word nightlife. Just like Richard, it seemed his whole family had a very negative image of that line of work. But what they didn't know was that Linda herself had worked in the nightlife industry. I wondered if they knew about the bullying I experienced, the messy relationships Linda had involving affairs and dating two men at once, or the fact that she lived in a hoarder's apartment and behaved like a stalker. I wonder if his parents know.
You can't even deny it, can you? Then why don't you just leave? Don't come back to this house.
Linda ignored me and smiled sweetly.
Can't find the front door in this big house. Want me to show you the way?
I couldn't take it anymore and finally snapped. Fine. Then let's call off the engagement.
What?
Linda looked shocked by my response. After a brief pause, I gathered my courage and said, The biggest reason I'm worried about marrying Richard is you, Linda.
What are you talking about?
You worked in the nightlife industry too, didn't you?
Richard looked pained as he spoke.
I've heard everything from Nancy. Linda, what have you been doing in New York? Not only working in the nightlife industry, but stalking a guy you met at the club, living in a trash-filled apartment.
Linda, stunned by her brother's words, turned to look at me. I stared back, refusing to look away.
What nightlife work? And what about stalking or living in a messy apartment?
Linda clapped her hands as if she had an epiphany and said,
Oh, you're talking about Nancy, right? Yo, I remember her in those skimpy outfits, always showing off her back and chest.
How do you even know about my outfits? As I spoke, I quietly placed a few photos on the table. In the photo, there were several hostesses. One of them was Linda, dressed in the revealing outfit she had just described, standing front and center. Her parents looked shocked, too stunned to speak. Linda began to open her mouth, likely to make a poor excuse, when suddenly, we heard someone at the door.
Nice to meet you. I'm Nancy's brother, Ethan.
It was my younger brother, the waiter from the bar Linda had dragged me to. He revealed that he had overheard everything that night while we were sitting at the counter.
I wouldn't normally eavesdrop, but I was concerned after hearing about my sister's future sister-in-law.
After saying that, my brother, mentioning how I had scolded him later, played the recording of Linda's actual conversation from that night. Hearing it, her mother shouted in anger.
Linda, what on earth are you doing? Back in New York, wearing outfits like that again, practically naked.
Her mother, in tears, demanded answers, repeatedly asking why. I started to feel anxious, but Richard reassured me by squeezing my hand tightly. Linda, overwhelmed by her mother's tears, began crying as well. Her father sat silently, hands clenched, looking down.
Linda, it's time to leave New York behind and move back here.
Realizing that her family now knew everything, Linda nodded in agreement. Later, I heard that her father had gone to help clean up her apartment, and together, over the course of several days, they finally tidied the place. I offered to help as well.
Let Dad handle it. In a way, it's part of making amends.
The reason Richard and his family despise the nightlife industry is because his father once had an affair with a woman who worked in that field. It almost tore the family apart, leaving deep emotional scars. Later, Richard told me that his sister, who had moved to New York with him, unknowingly ended up working in the same industry. Not only that, but she had been tricked and hurt by one of her male customers. I was surprised to learn that Linda's strange behavior wasn't something new.
Linda's too lonely to handle a place like New York. I'm just grateful I met you, Nancy, because it helped me realize what was happening to her. Thank you.
I asked him something that had been on my mind for a while. Linda mentioned, when she dragged me to that bar where my brother works, that she sleeps in the same bed as you. Is that true? He burst out laughing and said,
Of course not. That's just one of her lonely daydreams. No way.
A while later, I learned that Linda had left New York and returned to her hometown with her father after cleaning out her apartment. With her now out of the picture, I felt relieved that the one thing troubling me about our marriage was finally resolved. We decided to have our wedding near Richard's family home. I'm really looking forward to seeing the joy on everyone's faces on our big day.
This winter marked the first for my grandson, Tyler, since he was born. The weather forecast reported a record-breaking cold snap for the day. I wonder if they're okay. The first thing that came to mind was my deal, Emma and newborn Tyler. I hope they both haven't fallen ill from the cold. I was worried and sent Emma a message on my smartphone that night. Are you and your baby catching a cold? However, when I sent her a message twice and thrice, she doesn't reply or even read it. She's a serious person, so I hope she's not pushing herself too hard. After waiting another hour, I tried calling just in case, but the result was the same. This isn't like her at all. Without a second thought, I threw on a thick jacket and rushed out of my house, driving to the apartment complex where my son's family lived. No response when I rang the doorbell, and imagining Emma collapsed inside, I immediately called the building manager to unlock the door. Inside, it was dark, with only the faint glow of the streetlights seeping in. I groped along the wall, relying on memory to find the light switch. But no matter how many times I flipped it on and off, the lights wouldn't respond. What's going on here? My mind was about to explode with anxiety and frustration. I reluctantly used my smartphone's light to step inside. Emma, are you here? Maybe they were just out. Just as I was about to turn back, I thought I heard the faint cry of a baby from the bedroom. Emma, are you there? I immediately headed to the bedroom. Emma. There was Emma, shivering with cold, but desperately wrapping Tyler in a sheet to protect him. Are you okay? What's wrong with you? Shining the light, I was shocked to see Emma's pride and joy. Her long black hair was now chopped short, almost to a buzz cut. This is terrible. How could this happen? My name is Monica Davis, 61 years old. I've worked as a hairstylist for many years at a beauty salon that's also my home. Chatting leisurely with familiar customers during work is my greatest joy. My husband and I originally started the salon. But He passed away from cancer when he was young. It was not long after my son Max was born. Nevertheless, I pressed on, raising Max by myself. However, despite my efforts, Max wouldn't listen to me, starting to skip school in high school. When he did go, he caused trouble, and I was often called to apologize to his teachers. After graduating high school, Max didn't pursue further education and began hanging out in the city every day. Maybe it was his inferiority complex about not having a father, or perhaps my failure as a mother. Unsure of the answer, I always worried about Max's future. So, when Max suddenly said one day, "I want to be a hairstylist," I was so surprised I pinched my cheek, thinking I was dreaming. "What made you think so?" "Well, hairstylists get all the ladies, right?" Max replied with a smirk. "Looks like you do end up following in your parents' footsteps." Regardless of the reason, I took it positively that my son showed motivation for his future for the first time. Max smoothly graduated from beauty school and started working as an apprentice in a senior's salon. That's where he met his future wife, Emma, who was also working there. After a relentless pursuit, Max confidently told me, "I've decided to marry her," when introducing Emma to me.
Nice to meet you. My name's Emma. I've heard you are also a hairstylist. I'm looking forward to learning from you.
Emma was a charming woman with a bright smile, and her long black hair suited her well. "Nice to meet you, too." The moment I saw Emma, I liked her instantly. One day, a year after their marriage, Max started talking about wanting to open his own salon. Though he hadn't been an apprentice for long, Max seemed to have gained a lot of confidence as a hairstylist.
"Since I've become a hairstylist, I want to open my own salon and prove my skills on my own."
To be honest, I was a bit anxious. With years of experience, I knew all too well that this industry isn't kind enough for a newbie to easily start their own business. Yet, I couldn't ignore Max's earnest desire as he spoke of his dream with such serious eyes. "How much do you have for startup funds?" When I asked, Max gave me the deposit amount with a sigh and a slightly troubled expression. Despite the steady income from his apprenticeship, he was spending just as much as he earned. With this pattern, there was no way he could afford to start his own business. Max had squandered most of his earnings on leisure activities. Perhaps I should have advised him to give up then. But I just smiled and said, "Don't worry about the money," indulging my son's whim. Maybe it was my way of making up for the loneliness of growing up without a father. Truth be told, I had never touched the life insurance money left by my late husband. It's for Max, after all. You would forgive me, right? Gazing at the portrait of my late husband, I spoke to him in my heart. A regular customer of mine, who was knowledgeable in real estate, gave me advice.
"That place would be perfect."
It was a barber shop until half a year ago, but the owner had retired due to old age. The location wasn't bad, and she strongly recommended it for Max's new venture. When it came time for renovations, other regulars said, "Use my husband, he just lazes around at home on his days off, and my son's studying architecture in college and is home for the summer break. He can help out as part of his studies. Thanks to everyone's help, the renovation went smoothly, and we successfully got the approval of the beauty salon, and the opening of the shop was quick.
I never thought I could start my own business so quickly.
Remember to be grateful to everyone. You couldn't have done it alone.
I know, Mom. I'm grateful to you.
Then I gave Max a rest of my husband's inheritance. The purchase and renovation costs ended up being much cheaper than expected, so there was more than half of the inheritance left. This is a gift from your dad to you. Use it wisely for the business expenses and don't waste it.
Yay, I know. I'm not a kid anymore.
Max replied with a forced laugh.
Don't worry, Monica. I'll keep a close eye on Max to make sure he doesn't spend it on anything strange.
Emma said with a cheerful smile, making me laugh involuntarily. With Emma, a reliable person, helping out, I didn't need to worry about Max anymore. I optimistically decided to watch over their business from a distance. However, I soon realized my optimism was misplaced. Emma would sometimes visit my salon after work to update me, and each time, her expression grew darker. 3 months after Max's salon opened.
Max is not putting his heart into his work, and it's becoming a problem.
What, Max? Why?
He was all excited at the beginning. With my skills, the salon will surely thrive, he said enthusiastically. But after a month, his smile vanished, and he started treating customers coldly. As this continued for 3 months, the salon's reputation worsened through word of mouth, and eventually, customers stopped coming.
Hearing Emma's report, I was in disbelief. Max had expressed a desire to own his own shop. Despite his eagerness before the opening, what could have possibly happened in such a short period?
It seems Max thought that being skilled as a hairstylist was enough and underestimated the importance of customer service. But running a shop is not that simple.
Emma sighed as she said that. Indeed, as Emma pointed out, running a salon isn't as simple as being skilled as a hairstylist. In customer service, the way you treat your clients significantly impacts the business's success or failure. It seems like Max is missing that basic understanding. So, how is Max doing?
He seems to be getting more frustrated because we're not getting customers, spending his days drinking. This way, he can't focus on his work, and we're only driving customers further away. For now, I handle the customers when they come in, but if the salon's reputation continues to drop, managing it will get even tougher.
Emma looked like she was about to cry, and I felt the same way. Okay, I'll talk to him next time.
Thank you.
Emma deeply bowed her head, then brushed back her long black hair. Emma, your hair always mesmerizes me. I changed the subject to lighten the somber mood. I have kept my long hair since I was in middle school, Emma said proudly. Since then, is there a special reason?
Do you know about hair donation?
Emma looked at me earnestly. Hair donation. I remember hearing about it at a hairstylist meeting, but I don't know much about it. Emma's eyes lit up as she answered.
It's about making wigs with real hair for children who've lost theirs due to congenital conditions, illness, or accidents. I aim to grow my hair and donate to organizations involved in this activity. Isn't it wonderful to be able to help someone? I once read a magazine feature about an actress who was growing her hair for hair donation, thinking maybe I could do that too.
Wow, Emma, you're so young and yet so admirable. I was overwhelmed by Emma's passion, which also deeply moved me. 6 months after marrying Max, Emma got pregnant. She has always been earnest, and she tends to overdo things if I'm not watching. Emma, this is the most crucial time. You mustn't overdo it. I repeatedly warned her, to the point of sounding like a broken record. Each time, Emma would lightly laugh and say, "Don't worry, I'll consult with the baby in my belly and make sure not to overexert myself." But to anyone looking, it didn't seem like she was resting at all. Ultimately, Emma kept working in the salon to support the household until she was nearly due, but Max's behavior had worsened more than ever before. What is he thinking? Every time I received an update from Emma, I felt my inadequacies as a mother. One day, after finishing work early, I went to check on my son and daughter-in-law's salon, just as Max was heading out. "Where are you going?"
I am going out to drink. It's not like we're getting any customers today.
Without any sign of panic, Max laughed off his situation as if it were a joke. The lack of customers had become the norm for Max, and he no longer showed any effort to improve the situation. "You're going to be a father soon." Even when I tried to admonish him, Max dismissively waved his hand as if shooing away a fly and hopped on his motorcycle. "We're not done talking. Try to put yourself in Emma's shoes for once."
Yeah, I'll think about it if I feel like it.
With that, Max laughed and sped off on his motorcycle, ignoring my words. Inside the salon, Emma was cleaning the floor.
Today, we managed to get just one customer,
Emma said with a cheerful smile, though she looked too worn for a pregnant woman. "Are you eating properly? Make sure you're getting enough nutrients."
Don't worry, Monica.
"I'm not saying it for you. I'm saying it for the baby you're carrying." My tone was harsher than usual, but I felt it was necessary to scold her. Emma seemed to understand my true intention and tearfully said, "Thank you." At times like this, how can the father not be there to support her? I wanted to scream at Max, who wasn't there, from the bottom of my heart. Emma shared that the salon's business was far from thriving. And Max has been out every night, spending money like water. I shouldn't have given him his father's inheritance. I regretted my decision, albeit too late. Despite her busy schedule, Emma never neglected her hair care. Gently stroking her belly, she said,
"I want to teach the child I'm carrying the importance of being helpful to others."
I wanted to be a support for Emma. In place of my useless son, I decided to visit their apartment to help out with whatever Emma needed.
"I'm always sorry to trouble you."
"Don't worry about it. Just focus on the baby in your belly." It was my fault for the way I raised my son. Because of that, Emma was suffering. Perhaps this was my way of atoning, in my own small way. As summer ended, Emma went into labor earlier than expected and was rushed to the hospital. Even then, Max was unreachable, leaving us wondering where he might be wandering off to. I kept sending messages to Max, but no reply came, not even a read receipt. What is he doing at a time like this? Emma's parents had both passed away, leaving me as the only one who could be by her side. Don't worry, Emma, I'm here for you. To Emma, who was facing childbirth with all her might, I offered words of encouragement time and time again. After a long and difficult labor, the vigorous cries of the baby finally reached my ears. "It's your baby. Well done, Emma." Tears welled up in my eyes, but Max, you should have been there, never showed up once. Winter came, marking the first for my grandson Tyler since his birth. The weather forecast reported a record-breaking cold snap. No wonder it was too cold to get out of bed. I wonder if they're okay. The first thing that came to mind was Emma and newborn Tyler. I hope they both haven't fallen ill from the cold. Worried, I sent Emmy a message on my smartphone that night. Are you and your baby catching a cold? However, when I sent her a message twice and thrice, she doesn't reply or even read it. I grew concerned that Emma might be too ill to respond. She's always been so responsible. I hope she's not overdoing it. After waiting another hour, I tried calling just to be sure, but the result was the same. This isn't good. Without a second thought, I put on a thick jacket and rushed out of my house, driving to the apartment complex where my son's family lived. Arriving at the apartment, I was shrouded in darkness. It's not uncommon for families to live overseas from the end of the year into the new year, but I hadn't heard anything about a trip from Emma and Max, and they shouldn't have the financial means for such a trip anyway. No response when I rang the doorbell, and imagining Emma collapsed inside, I immediately called the building manager to unlock the door.
I'll wait outside, so please let me know if you find anything.
I thanked the manager, stepping into the apartment. The place was dark, with only the faint glow of the street lights seeping in. I remembered there was a light switch right by the entrance. Relying on memory, I groped along the wall to find the switch. But no matter how many times I tried, the lights wouldn't respond. What's going on here? Overwhelmed with anxiety and irritation, I reluctantly used my smartphone's light to venture further inside. Emma, are you there? I called out in the living room, but there was no response. Maybe they were just out. Just as I was about to turn back, I thought I heard the faint sound of a baby from the bedroom. Emma, are you there? I immediately headed towards the bedroom, where I heard the noise. Emma. There was Emma, shivering from the cold, yet desperately wrapping newborn Tyler in a sheet to protect him. What happened? When I shone the light, I was shocked to find that Emma's long black hair, once her pride and joy, was now chopped off, leaving her almost bald. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. This is terrible. How did this happen? I took off my jacket and draped it over Emma. It's okay now. You don't have to force yourself to talk if it's difficult, but can you tell me what happened? Emma began to speak slowly. After Tyler was born, Max continued his daily escapades unchanged. Eventually, unable to pay the electricity bill, Em reached her limit and finally scolded Max. She wished he would show more awareness as a father. Emma had hoped for that, but her feelings never reached Max. In a rage, Max began to cut Emma's hair with a pair of practice hairdressing scissors he happened to find nearby. Emma initially tried to resist and said, "Stop." But, worried that any further resistance might accidentally harm Tyler, she stopped resisting. Max laughed and said, "Now you can't show your face in public." I was speechless at my son's cruel actions. Why didn't you tell me it had come to this?
I'm sorry, Monica. I'm so sorry.
Emma started blaming herself again. No, Emma, it's not your fault. I'm not blaming you. The one at fault here is Max. You haven't done anything wrong. Emma must have thought she shouldn't worry me and decided not to tell me anything. I hugged Emma tightly as she sobbed. The cause of all this was my indulgence in raising Max to this point. My heart burned with anger at my own inadequacy and at my son, who could not understand the pain of others. Taking a deep breath, I called Max.
Mom, long time no see. What's up all of a sudden?
Just wanted to hear your voice after so long. How are things on your end? Are Emma and Tyler doing well?
Of course, everyone's doing great.
No one's answering at home. Where are you? After a pause, as if he was concocting an excuse, Max's voice halted.
Actually, we're in Hawaii, the three of us. We'll be back next week.
Oh, Hawaii, that sounds nice. Max confidently lied, thinking I was clueless. What was the point of all the care I had provided for Max? After losing my husband at a young age, I worked tirelessly as a hairstylist. All to make Max a respectable person. When Max wanted to become independent as a hairstylist, I didn't hesitate to fulfill his wish. Yet, Max squandered the inheritance left by his father on his pleasures, completely disregarding my feelings. Moreover, to treat his own wife and child with such cruelty was something I could never forgive. My hope for Max turned into disappointment.
What do you want for a souvenir? Look forward to it.
Anything's fine. So you're coming back next week? Yes, safely, then.
Hey, Mom, you sound concerned. Is something wrong, Mom?
Max seemed to be saying something more, but I hung up without bothering to listen. After thanking the apartment manager who was waiting outside, I decided to take Emma and Tyler back to my house. Then, I made calls to every place I could think of. A week passed, and Max called my smartphone. He was in a good mood, saying he had just landed at the airport.
I'm back. I even bought souvenirs for you, Mom.
Max was trying to play the affectionate son now, but my heart wasn't fooled anymore. That's nice. I replied in a flat tone, but Max seemed not to notice anything was off. About an hour later, a taxi stopped in front of the apartment complex. Max, with distinct tan lines from sunglasses around his eyes, indicating a fun trip to Hawaii, began unloading a pile of luggage from the trunk. He took out his keys and headed towards what he thought was his home, expecting the door to open easily. He must have thought the door would open immediately once he inserted and turned the key. However, the key wouldn't fit into the lock, no matter how many times he tried.
What the hell is this? What's going on?
Max exclaimed in frustration. I approached him from behind and asked with a smile, "Was your trip to Hawaii enjoyable?" Though my heart was boiling with anger.
Mom, you're here.
Max seemed relieved to see me, misunderstanding my presence.
Listen, Mom, I just got back and tried to get into the house, but the key won't fit. It must be some kind of prank by Emma because I went on a trip alone. She's probably mad at me.
He wanted to play the victim, blaming everything on Emma. Leaving Emma, who just gave birth, and newborn Tyler behind. What were you doing?
I've told you 100 times. I was with my family in Hawaii.
Didn't you just say you went on the trip alone? I pointed out his contradiction, leaving Max speechless. How could you lie about going to Hawaii with your family? Emma was left without electricity, shivering in the cold, holding Tyler close to protect him. And to think you cut off Emma's long hair she cherished so much, doesn't it hurt you as a human being?
I admit that was wrong, but right now, I want to get inside. It's freezing here.
Max showed no remorse, rubbing his arms exaggeratedly. The cold Emma and Tyler experienced wasn't anything like this. Plus, you no longer have a home here. I've already canceled the apartment lease. It's time you find your own place to live.
Canceled. Why would you do something like that?
Max panicked, but the apartment lease was in my name. I decided to take Max to a nearby cafe to talk things over, as we couldn't keep standing outside. Max sipped his coffee silently, probably unable to taste anything. With a pale expression, Max's gaze shifted back and forth between my face and the coffee. Struggling with money to the point you couldn't even pay the electricity bill, and yet you went to Hawaii.
That was.
Max frowned, eventually starting to explain his selfish reasoning. Right after opening his shop, Max wanted to impress his friends and female clients he picked up at the store. So he spent his late husband's inheritance on leisure activities. Max knew that such spending would quickly deplete even a large inheritance. However, having acquired a taste for the power of money, Max continued to buy gifts for his friends and take them on trips, even going into debt after exhausting the inheritance. Quite generous for a failing business.
No worries, I'm a professional hairstylist. If I put in the effort, clients will come flooding in, and I'll be able to support my family.
Max confidently replied, but where his confidence came from was a mystery to me. As for your salon, it's already been sold. I sold all the equipment too. It's too late to try to get it back now. I shattered his baseless confidence.
That's a lie. Why would you do something like that?
Max slammed the table, his face turning red. Oh, you cared about the salon. I thought you had abandoned it since you left everything to Emma. Besides, I bought that building and land in my name. You have no right to complain now.
But I was gathering clients. I had a plan.
Max had the look of a child about to cry, one who couldn't get the toy he wanted. If you're so confident in your skills, you'll be able to start over from zero quickly. After coldly turning my back on my son, I left the coffee shop, leaving behind only the money for the coffee on the table. A month passed. Both Emma and I had been avoiding any contact with Max, but unpleasant rumors inevitably reached a parent's ears. After being rejected by me, Max apparently turned to his friends, desperately asking for money. However, those who had gathered around Max were initially attracted by his wealth. Predictably, none of them were willing to help now that Max had lost his financial power. Furthermore, he got reported to the police for stalking the female clients he picked up in his salon. Although he got off with a stern warning from the police, Max, having realized his lack of genuine connections, completely vanished from our lives. By now, he's likely living alone, haunted by the harsh demands of creditors. All of this was the result of seeds Max had sown himself. My anger towards Max wasn't just about his reckless spending. Even more unforgivable was how he neglected Emma and Tyler, pushing them into a life of hardship. And then there was the fact that Max had selfishly chopped off the long hair that Emma had been growing and cherishing for years. That foolish act might have robbed unknown children, who had been eagerly awaiting Emma's hair, of a brighter future. As a hairstylist myself, Max's actions are inexcusable. It will take a long time for Max to truly understand the pain Emma endured. Emma herself wouldn't speak of her heartache, but it's clear she's not unscathed. She likely keeps her feelings to herself to avoid worrying me. Wanting to do something for her, I reached out through my connections in the beauty industry to have a wig made specifically for Emma. It won't make up for my son's actions, but please use this.
Thank you, Monica.
Emma said with a smile, but tears were rolling down her cheeks. Using my back pain as an excuse, I asked Emma to help out in my salon. She threw herself into the work, perhaps trying to forget her emotional pain.
Hello, Tyler.
The regular customer greeted, and Tyler, lying in his cradle, laughed out loud. Now, some customers come just to see Tyler. He's like a little mascot for the salon. Slowly regaining her physical and emotional strength, Emma has started taking steps toward officially divorcing Max.
Seeing Emma's smile makes us all feel like we've turned back the clock by 20 years.
One of the regulars said it in jest, but there's no denying that Emma and Tyler's presence has brightened up the shop. Drawn by Emma's cheerful atmosphere, many other mothers have become regulars. All right, let's make today a great day too. Come in. Good morning. The salon is filled with smiles again today. In a corner, Tyler is sleeping soundly, breathing softly, and looking adorable.
I'm going to remarry the rich doctor. You, an old woman, should raise twins.
Nancy laughed at me mockingly when she said that. The man standing next to her also had a sneering grin on his face. There's no way I could leave the two adorable kids with such people. Are you sure about this? I'd be happy to. If they'll let me, I'd be more than happy to take care of them. Thinking this, I responded with a smile. But please never show your face to me and children again.
Yes, that's fine. I'm not interested in my kids.
Nancy went out laughing. As I glared at her back, that Twins ran up to me.
Can we stay here?
Yes, of course. Let's live with Grandma from today on.
Yeah. We want to live with Grandma.
It's unbelievable that anyone wouldn't want such adorable twins. Hugging them, I vowed to make them happy. Then, in the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Living a peaceful, retired life, that person came to see me again.
Hey, give me my twins back.
I am Susan Johnson, a 60-year-old housewife working in a factory. I have a son, Michael, and a husband who passed away a few years ago. My husband's family has been running the factory for generations, and that's where we met. When I was working diligently, he approached me and we fell in love very quickly. After dating for a few years, we got married. Then I gave birth to Michael.
My dream is to take over Dad's factory when I grow up. So, I want to learn everything I can.
Michael said he inherited my husband's kindness and my earnestness, and I think he grew up to be a wonderful kid. Having been around the factory since he was young, Michael was well liked by everyone there.
After I graduate from high school, I want to work at the factory.
What are you saying? Michael respected everyone at the factory and even wanted to start working right after high school. However, our factory is large and has contracts with many major companies, so we're doing well financially. And Michael is smart enough to aim for a top university. As his parents, we hoped he would go to university. We really think you should go to university, given the chance.
No, I want to start working at the factory as soon as possible.
No matter how much we tried to persuade him, Michael was steadfast. It was quite troubling. Then, someone else convinced Michael.
You should go to university, Michael.
It was John Miller, who started working at our factory right after graduating from high school. He was close in age to Michael, and they spent a lot of time together.
Learn what I couldn't teach you. Make this factory even bigger, and make its name known worldwide.
John's words had an impact, and Michael listened. And then, he successfully went on to university. Michael, having studied business in university, used his knowledge to secure new contracts and further expand the factory's success. We believed we could continue to live happily, managing the factory together. We believed so, but just then, my husband fell ill suddenly. He collapsed at the factory and never regained consciousness, passing away shortly after.
From now on, I'll protect both the factory and Mom.
While everyone was engulfed in sadness, Michael, who had grown up, supported me and managed the factory well. Now, Michael is married and the father of twin girls, Maria and Millie.
Hello, Grandma. Grandma, we're here to see you.
You both made it. Good to see you. Take your time and relax. The twins were very lovely. Maria, the older sister, was serious, while Millie, the younger, was kind. They both adored me and hugged me whenever they visited me. I love these twins so much that I no longer felt the sadness of losing my husband.
When are you going to stop working, Mom?
I plan to work as long as I can. I don't want to be a burden to you in the future. Therefore, I was working in the factory. Thanks to that, I've been living fulfilling days. Taking it easy once in a while is good, too. On a day off. Today I had a day off from the factory and was about to do some reading after a long time. Who could that be? Suddenly, the intercom rang. No visitors were scheduled, so I puzzled and checked on the camera. What? Maria, Millie. It was the twins. Surprised, I quickly opened the front door and welcomed them in. What's the matter, you two? Where's your mom? Looking around, I saw no adults. Could it be that these 5-year-olds came here by themselves?
Mom said to go to Grandma's house today. She's too busy to look after us today.
Hearing the details, it seems their mother, Nancy, told them to come to my house and locked them out. It was snowing since the morning and very cold outside. No matter how far you can walk, let only children walk the streets. Were you cold? I'll make some warm cocoa for you.
Yay! We love cocoa. Thank you, Grandma.
As I served the twins warm drinks, I tried calling Nancy. However, there was no sign of her answering. So, I decided to contact Michael.
What? Maria and Millie are there.
Michael immediately answered the phone, sounding very surprised. He had been on a business trip since last week and was not home. He was due back today, but even if he hurried, he wouldn't arrive until the evening.
I wish I could rush over right now, but it seems impossible from where I am on a business trip. I'm sorry, but could you look after them until I get there?
Yes, of course. I immediately agreed to Michael's request, feeling sorry. I had no plans for the day anyway. Having the day turn into one spent with the adorable twins was actually a delight for me.
Thank you. I'll talk to Nancy myself.
Michael said before hanging up. Feeling the twins' eyes on me, I turned to see them looking somewhat anxious. Let's play together until your dad arrives. Can you tell me what games you like?
Yay! We're so happy to play with you. We want to play games.
For a while, we played games together. Then, Michael called me.
It seems like the phone is turned off, and I can't get in touch with Nancy either.
That's okay. I'll take good care of the twins, so don't rush and take your time getting here.
That really helps. Thanks, Mom.
After ending the call with Michael, I sighed. What could Nancy be up to? At times like this, it would be good to contact her family, but according to Michael, she seems to be estranged from her own family. So, they rarely communicate. It seems unlikely that her family would know anything. Hey, what does your mom usually do? Haven't you heard anything? Not knowing what else to do, I asked the twins.
Mom isn't interested in us. She has someone more important than us.
These words gave me a bad feeling. Could she be having an affair? Maybe it's time to investigate. While considering this, I made sure to keep the twins from feeling anxious.
Thank you for waiting, and for looking after them.
Yay, Dad? Daddy, welcome back.
A few hours later, Michael arrived. Seeing their father, the twins ran to him joyfully. I was comforted by their happy faces and greeted Michael, who looked tired. Did you manage to contact Nancy?
No, not yet. Actually, I'm thinking about the future.
Michael said, seeming deeply concerned.
Depending on Nancy's response, I might need to take the twins and move back home.
You're welcome to come back anytime. I readily agreed to Michael's words. This seemed to ease Michael's expression a bit. Yet, I felt anger towards Nancy for putting him through this. Then, several hours later, as it had gotten completely dark, the doorbell rang.
Well, I've come to pick up my twins.
There was Nancy. I was irritated at her troublesome attitude. Before I could react, an angry Michael confronted her. Nancy, what have you been doing all this time? Clearly, she hadn't expected Michael to be there, her eyes widening in surprise.
Why is Michael here?
Just answer my question.
I was called out by some mom friends and was meeting with them.
Nancy responded reluctantly under Michael's questioning.
Then why didn't you contact us?
My phone battery died.
Nancy dodged Michael's probing with evasive excuses. Michael sighed deeply at her responses.
Sorry for the trouble. Let's go home.
Michael apologized to me and took the unhappy twins back home. The next day, oh, how unusual. I was a bit surprised when I received a call from Nancy and answered the phone.
Listen, Susan, because of your unnecessary meddling, Michael scolded me.
What?
If you had just silently taken care of the twins, there would have been no problem.
Nancy complained without letting me get a word in. I was momentarily taken aback, but then responded. First of all, isn't it your fault for locking out the twins? And at least give me a heads up next time. It was good that I happened to be home this time, but if I had plans and was out, those kids could have been freezing under the cold sky.
What are you talking back to me? This is why I can't stand old women.
Nancy retorted and hung up the phone. What is she thinking? I sighed, frustrated with Nancy's attitude. Then the phone rang again, and it was John's name on the display.
I went on a trip and wanted to give you a souvenir. Do you have time later?
That's lovely. I have time, so please come over whenever. John has always been fond of me, like his mother. He started working at our factory after his parents died in a car accident when he was in high school. Since his parents were my colleagues, I've been looking out for him. It seems Michael also cares for John like his brother.
May I come in? Susan, what's wrong? You look tired.
John asked me anxiously when he came to my house. Yes, a little. Would you mind listening to my story?
Of course.
So, I ended up venting to John. He listened and nodded along appropriately.
That's concerning.
John, after listening, murmured thoughtfully.
I know a detective. I can ask if they can look into it for you.
Really, that would be so helpful.
For me, Susan, you're like my mother, and Michael is like my brother. The twins are like my nieces. I'd do anything for such important family members.
His reassuring smile made me feel confident. A few days after that,
Mom, could you look after the twins this Saturday?
I was asked by Michael to take care of the twins. Despite the tension in his voice, I agreed to his request. Then, on the day, Michael, who looked like he had made a decision, and the twins, who looked sleepy in the early morning, came to my house. What's going on, Michael? Is something wrong? I couldn't help but ask Michael that question.
I'll tell you when I get back. Be good girls, okay?
Michael smiled at the twins and then left. We watched him go until he was out of sight, believing he would return that day.
Daddy has gone. Will he come back soon?
Yes, he'll be back soon. However, Michael never returned to this house again. What? No, that can't be true. Are you sure it was Michael? Michael had an accident at a tourist site and tragically never returned. The following period was incredibly difficult. Please say it's not true.
Daddy, Daddy, wake up, Daddy.
After losing my son and losing their father, I and the twins cried and clung to Michael's cold body.
Why? Leaving behind such lovely daughters. It's too soon.
John supported us through this time and helped with all the arrangements. The factory staff rushed over immediately, comforting our family, but
what is she doing? Her husband has just died.
Amidst this, Nancy was nowhere to be seen. Even after the funeral, she made no contact and disappeared. Maybe it's better she's not here. I felt indignation at her actions. But without her around, at least I wouldn't have to deal with her disrespectful behavior. While thinking this, I cared for the crying twins, unable to recover. Who could that be? Just when things had finally calmed down a bit, the intercom rang, and I checked the camera, and it was Nancy. Nancy, where have you been all this?
Oh, hi there. Long time no see.
Angered, I opened the door to find Nancy and a flashy dressed man standing there. That's when I realized my bad feeling was right, and my anger turned to cold calmness. What do you want now, and how dare you show your face here?
Well, scary. Oh, this is my boyfriend. He's a doctor and rich.
She didn't mind my cold attitude at all. Nancy boasted about the man with her, smirking in a vulgar manner. Were you cheating on Michael?
It's not cheating. He's the one I really love.
Nancy said, laughing with the man beside her.
So, I have a favor to ask of you, Susan.
What is it?
The twins are in the way of my remarriage, so I don't need them. Can you take them in?
I was furious at her words. What did she just say? Did she say she doesn't want her daughters? I fell silent in an instant. And she went on to say to me,
I'm going to remarry the rich doctor. You, an old woman, should raise twins.
Nancy laughed at me mockingly when she said that. The man next to her also smirked and pleasantly. I couldn't possibly leave the two adorable children with such people. Are you sure? I'd be delighted. If I can take care of them, I'd gladly do so. Thinking this, I responded with a smile. But please, never show your face to me and children again.
Fine by me. I'm not interested in my kids.
Nancy went out laughing. As I glared at her back, the twins ran to me.
Can we stay here?
Yes, of course. Let's start living with Grandma from today.
Yeah. We want to live with Grandma.
It's unimaginable that such adorable twins are unwanted. Hugging them tightly, I vowed to make them happy.
Grandma, we'll come back home early today.
We'll make dinner, so just wait for us.
All right, I'll be waiting. Then, in what seemed like the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Having retired, I would see off the twins as they energetically set off. We had completely recovered from our past sorrows and were living a normal life. So, what shall we do today? Living such a peaceful, retired life, I was visited by someone. Now an elderly lady, I was spending my days leisurely. The doorbell rang loudly. Who could it be?
Open up. You have the two of them inside, right?
When I asked a visitor through the camera, the person yelled without answering. Seemed like a woman, but unfamiliar. While pondering who it could be.
Hey, give me back my twins.
Hearing this, I finally realized that the woman was Nancy. She had aged and changed so much over these 15 years that I genuinely didn't recognize her. This is too much for me to handle alone. I murmured to myself and contacted some people. They arrived within minutes and surrounded her.
What are you doing here now?
John was the first to shout. He was glaring at Nancy with anger.
What do you mean, what? I came to take back my daughters.
Intimidated by John's intensity and the crowd, Nancy still shouted defiantly.
They are my children, so give them back to me.
Her outcry had a reason. She must have seen them on TV. In fact, the twins have become quite sought after on TV. Maria as a popular singer, and Millie as a talented actress. These two are set to co-star soon, and were recently featured as beautiful twins. Nancy likely showed up after seeing this. What about that rich doctor? I asked Nancy. She contorted her face in ugliness.
I dumped that guy long ago.
While shouting, she began to explain the situation, even though no one had asked. The man she brought that day was not a doctor but a con artist. Actually, it was his brother who was the real doctor.
That man was after Michael's wealth.
The man approached Nancy for the money of Michael, who runs a large factory. After Michael's death, Nancy, who received the inheritance, and her boyfriend, who had amassed money by deceiving many women, lived extravagantly for a while. But eventually, his actions came to light, and he was arrested. In addition, the boyfriend was caught using his brother's name, and his brother got angry and disowned him. Nancy, having abandoned her destitute boyfriend, shamelessly returned to our home.
They were my daughters from the start, so I will take them back.
That's out of the question.
That's right. We won't let you touch our beloved girls.
John exclaimed, and everyone from the factory echoed in agreement. Indeed, the twins were precious children raised by all of us at the factory. We had no intention of handing them over to such a woman. Everyone, I have something to say. I spoke on the day Nancy abandoned the twins. I was prepared to raise them, but considering my age, I asked for support from everyone at the factory.
What a woman.
Truly terrible. Susan, leave it to us. We will raise the twins together with everyone at the factory.
Thus, we united to raise the twins, taking turns to care for them, playing and going out together. With everyone's help, the initially withdrawn twins gradually opened up.
You know, we have dreams we want to achieve. We promised Dad too. We'll definitely make them come true.
Eventually, they began to talk about their dreams. Their dream was to become an idol singer and an actress. Hearing this, we all watched TV together to learn, joined them in singing lessons and acting practice, and supported them wholeheartedly. I'm grateful to her for leaving the twins with us. Because of that, they were able to achieve their dreams. Had they stayed with Nancy, they might never have realized their dreams, or even grown up healthy.
And now you show up demanding them back. Who do you think you are?
Be quiet. I am their mother. Those twins have an obligation to support me.
At these words, everyone present showed anger. Which mouth dares to call itself mother? It was at that moment.
Who's mother?
We don't have an ugly mother like you.
It was then that a voice was heard. When everyone turned to look, they saw the twins with expressions of disgust.
Maria, Millie, it's been a while, my girls. You've both grown up to be so beautiful.
Nancy approached the twins with a broad smile, but the twins responded with increasingly displeased expressions.
And who's my mother?
You treated us like nuisances and locked us out in the cold, didn't you?
And you abandoned us as soon as Daddy was gone, didn't you?
The twins asked in a cold voice. Though they were young at the time, it seemed they clearly remembered their mother's actions.
Well, there were circumstances.
Faced with their words, Nancy was at a loss for words.
We remember everything clearly. How you neglected us.
You betrayed Daddy, and you were the reason Daddy is no longer here.
At these words, Nancy's eyes widened. Michael had a truck.
How did you know?
Nancy, trembling, muttered upon hearing the truth about what happened 15 years ago from the twins.
I was the one who investigated it.
It was John who responded to her. He had desperately searched for evidence to avenge his brother. He managed to find a witness and uncovered the truth through sheer persistence. Normally, this information should have been reported to the police. But by then, the investigation had already been concluded, and without concrete evidence, there was only the witness's testimony. We had no intention of involving ourselves with Nancy anymore and chose to remain silent.
We will never forgive you, and we certainly don't want to support you.
If you still insist on taking us back, then pay all the back child support you owe.
Nancy appeared flustered by these words. We felt joy seeing how much the twins had grown.
What will you do?
Or should we call the police to take you away?
At the twins' pressure, Nancy exclaimed, "You must be joking," and fled. The factory workers applauded the twins' courage and maturity. You've grown up so much.
Oh well.
We'll make sure to repay all the kindness we've received.
At this, John's face looked like he was about to cry. He had protected and raised the twins like their father, stepping in for Michael. That's why he was probably as moved as I was.
Oh, number John.
Don't cry, it's embarrassing.
I'm not crying yet.
At John's response, laughter erupted once more. It was a warm and happy scene. Watching them, I too couldn't help but smile broadly. A few days after these events unfolded.
By the way, that woman who was lamenting about being our mother was apparently arrested.
I heard too. She tried to approach us again, and the police found her location.
Oh dear. Listening to the twins talk about Nancy. Afterwards, it was revealed that she was an accomplice of her boyfriend, and she was apparently arrested by the police. While she had made it seem as if only her boyfriend was the fraudster, Nancy was also involved. She was engaged in a scheme similar to a honey trap, and the police were after her.
Thanks to everyone at the factory acting that day, there were many witnesses.
It was easy for the police to find her.
The incident was reported by someone who witnessed the events of that day, leading to a detailed investigation and resulting in Nancy being sent to prison. She won't be out for a long time. That's good. With the police handling it, we can focus on the shooting.
That's right.
Definitely watch us, Grandma.
What's more, she could do this. She might claim to be the mother of the beautiful twins once she's released. However, that will only backfire on her. Of course, I'll watch, It's your crowning achievement. The project they were filming was about their life story. Losing their father at 5, abandoned by their mother, and raised by the factory workers where their grandmother worked. Their journey from that adversity to success would be depicted. Thus, the more Nancy claimed to be their mother, the more she would be despised by those around her. She brought it upon herself. Let her thoroughly experience the hell she's created.
That's right. And with the broadcast, the factory will gain even more popularity.
We'll need John to work harder.
Currently, John, who took over after Michael, is managing the factory.
I will protect everything.
He said this and continues to protect us even now. We decided to express our gratitude to him together, smiling at the FOD. The drama, once aired, became a massive hit. People sympathized with that Wynn's situation and loathed the mother's character.
Some zealous fans dug up information on Nancy, even discovering she's in prison.
Oh dear, hell awaits her upon release. No one will be there for her. Her infamous boyfriend is serving a long sentence for multiple frauds and is unlikely to welcome her back. Regarding her family, it turns out that after the incident 15 years ago, they were investigated and confronted. Nancy's parents had disowned her long before, and they were completely unaware of her current situation.
She was disowned for being too wicked and causing trouble for the family. If only she had learned her lesson back then.
Indeed. Therefore, no relatives would be there to receive her. She will likely spend her future alone, continually regretting her actions.
I feel like we've finally gotten revenge,
John remarked, a weight lifted off his shoulders. He had acted thoughtfully for us, fiercely guarding the factory. That's why the twins have come to adore John as their father. Thank you for everything. At my words, John gave a shy smile.
I have something to discuss with you, Susan.
What's up?
I'm thinking of leaving the factory.
I wasn't particularly surprised by his words. I was concerned about it, especially since I heard he was handing over various responsibilities to younger employees.
The twins have achieved their dreams, and I've left the factory in reliable hands. Now it's time for me to pursue my own dream.
If that's your decision, I won't object. Thank you for everything, I said with a smile, prompting a happy grin from John.
Then first, would you go on a trip with me?
Really?
I've always dreamed of going on a trip with my family,
John asked with a childlike smile. I stared at his smiling face for a few seconds, then nodded with a smile of my own. If it's with family, we have to invite the twins too.
Yes, we need to choose a place where everyone can relax.
After a while, the four of us went on a trip. During the trip, that Wins and I gave John a surprise gift, and when he finally broke down in tears, we all burst into laughter. It's been 15 years since you've been gone. I wonder if you and your dad are getting along well there. I mused at the graves of my husband and Michael. The time when I will join the two of them may not be far off, or it could still be a long way away. The children have grown up and achieved their dreams. Following that drama, Maria became an even more popular idol. She is scheduled to go on a nationwide tour soon. Millie received an offer to act in an international movie and had traveled abroad. Michael, John has avenged you properly. After leaving the factory, John has been enjoying his passion for travel. Everyone has achieved their dreams. So, don't worry. Just wait for me to join you there, whenever that time comes. Saying this, I stood up. I wonder what I should do next. I decided to live life to the fullest until my days come to an end. I believe that will be my way of repaying the kindness I've received. Right, today is the day Millie is supposed to call me. I better get back and prepare, I murmured, starting to walk back.
Hi, Grandma.
Maria, aren't you in the middle of your national tour?
I was nearby and wanted to see you. And I want to join the video call with Millie.
Maria said this with a lovely smile. I'm sure Millie would have the same smile. With their smiling faces as my support, I will keep on living my life today.
I only prepared enough food for our family.
What does that even mean? Marissa's words left me and Kenny in shock. We were invited to our grandchild's 3rd birthday party. So why was there a dollar coin on our seats?
Why is there a dollar here?
When I asked, Marissa gave a mean smile.
Buy whatever you want with that.
In that moment, we understood everything. It was clear this was her way of mocking us. Her smug look said it all, but we stayed silent. We won't stay silent any longer. No more financial support. My husband and I were on the same page. My name is Linda. I'm a full-time housewife in my late 40s. My husband, Kenny, is the same age, and we got married in our 20s. Kenny works as a pilot, and he's a captain now. I used to work as a flight attendant for the same airline, but after we got married, I decided to leave my job and focus on being a housewife. At the time, I had wanted to continue being a flight attendant, but balancing work and home life was too hard for me. Even though it was tough, I've ended up living a happy life. We have one son, Tyler. He works as a lawyer and is quite popular, appearing in the media often. He's moved out and now lives on his own. We are so proud of him. One day, Tyler called and said,
I'm getting married.
Apparently, he had proposed to his longtime girlfriend. What? That's amazing.
We should meet her sometime.
Kenny and I were so excited, we couldn't help but cheer. Tyler was laughing on the other end of the phone too. He told us he'd talked to his fiancé, and they were planning a family lunch for us to meet. We happily agreed, and the plan was set for the next weekend at a chic cafe Tyler had reserved.
I think bringing her straight to the house might be too much for a first meeting.
Kenny said, and I agreed. What kind of person did Tyler choose, considering he can be so thoughtful? We were sure she was wonderful. We couldn't wait to meet the woman. When the day arrived, we went to the cafe, and Tyler was already there with her. She smiled at us as we walked in. Nice to meet you. I'm Tyler's mother.
And I'm his father. Nice to meet you.
We greeted her, and she gave a polite greeting. Glancing shyly at Tyler, she seemed a little bit shy. Sensing that, Tyler introduced her to us.
This is Marissa. Her father's been working as a lawyer at my firm.
I'm Marissa. It's nice to meet you.
Though she was soft-spoken, she made sure to look us in the eyes. After the pleasant introductions, we all went inside the cafe. Marissa seemed quiet and reserved, but the atmosphere was comfortable. I think the meeting went smoothly overall. However, when Tyler and Kenny briefly left the table, Marissa asked me something unexpected.
What kind of work do you do, Laura?
I'm a full-time housewife. I quit my job when we got married. When I said that, she looked surprised.
What? So you've been living on just your husband's income?
That's right. I purposely didn't mention that I used to be a flight attendant. While that was a proud moment of my past, I wasn't about to brag about it.
Oh, that must be nice,
she said with a smile. There was something off about that smile for just a moment, but then Kenny and Tyler returned, and the conversation moved on. By the way, Marissa, what kind of work do you do? As we were getting ready to leave, I asked Tyler privately.
She's working as her dad's secretary. She said she's still learning the ropes, though.
I see. If she's an apprentice legal secretary, she must be very smart and capable. Maybe to someone like her, a full-time housewife like me didn't seem very impressive. That's how the meeting ended, leaving me with a bit of a strange feeling.
Could you help us out with our living expenses?
Marissa said this to us about a week after the wedding and their honeymoon. She suddenly showed up at our house, and as soon as she sat down, that's what she asked. Tyler wasn't with her, and Kenny and I were completely caught off guard. Help with living expenses, what do you mean? When I asked, Marissa's face turned serious.
Tyler's salary alone isn't enough to live comfortably. I only make pocket money since I'm still an apprentice.
Tyler's earning a pretty decent salary, though. What's so hard about it?
Kenny had a point. Tyler might still be young, but he passed the bar exams while he was in college and became a lawyer in record time. He's been doing great and is already a trusted attorney. But apparently, even with his income, it wasn't enough for Marissa.
Maybe we're okay now, but once we have kids, we'll be in trouble. That's why I'm asking for help now, to start saving for the future.
Marissa said this with determination. I could understand her anxiety about the future. But isn't it something they could worry about once they actually had kids? I don't mind helping, but you could also start saving within Tyler's current salary before kids come along.
Exactly. There's no rush until after the kids are here.
When Kenny and I said that, Marissa seemed a bit thrown off for a second. But just for a second.
Well, I'm still anxious. With my own future uncertain, having an unstable marriage scares me.
She looked down with watery eyes, trembling. Could she be crying? Was she silently worried about the future, even to Tyler? With that thought, neither Kenny nor I could ask her anything further. And so, we reluctantly agreed to help Marissa out.
If Tyler gets a raise and Marissa becomes a competent secretary, things should stabilize.
I agreed with Kenny's words. Sure, Marissa might struggle at first, but she would figure it out in time. I convinced myself of that, but there was one thing Marissa said that bothered me.
I have a favor to ask. Could you keep this a secret from Tyler? I'll talk to him about it someday.
Kenny and I agreed to that request, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were deceiving Tyler. A year after we started helping Marissa, Tyler and Marissa welcomed their first child. We were thrilled to finally meet our long-awaited grandchild. But then, a problem arose. While Marissa called her parents to the hospital, she said she didn't want us to come.
Sorry, she's not feeling well and needs some space. I promise I'll let her see you after she's discharged.
Tyler, who called us, sounded genuinely apologetic as he said that. We understood and decided it was fine, looking forward to meeting our grandchild. In the end, we got to see our grandchild a month after the discharge. Tyler and Marissa came over to our house for a visit.
I can finally introduce you.
Tyler said with a smile, showing us the baby's face. The baby, a boy who looked just like Tyler, brought tears of joy to my eyes. He's so cute.
Absolutely.
Do you want to hold him for a bit?
As Kenny and I smiled, Tyler said that. But Marissa, standing next to him, glared at us with an annoyed look.
Don't you think it's time to head home? You said we had to leave soon since we're going to my parents' place.
I know, but can't we just enjoy a little longer?
Tyler replied, but Marissa quickly took the baby away from him.
Thanks for having us.
She said that with a straight face and walked out. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since they arrived. Tyler smiled sadly at us, looking a bit defeated.
Sorry, she's been pretty on edge lately.
Kenny and I exchanged glances. Realizing Marissa might be feeling overly sensitive after just having a baby. Though we had mixed feelings, we handed Tyler the gift for the newborn without complaining. By the way, while Tyler personally brought back the thank you gift, Marissa never contacted us again. From that point on, Marissa started avoiding contact with us. Tyler would come to visit with the baby, but for some reason, Marissa seemed reluctant, and their visits became less frequent. However, despite not wanting to meet, Marissa only reached out to me.
Please pick up some diapers, 'cause we're out.
She didn't even call. Instead, she texts a brief message. Reluctantly, I went shopping and rang the doorbell at their place, only to receive another message.
Please leave them at the front door.
Even though I was paying for the shopping, I didn't get a single word of thanks. I didn't expect gratitude, but at least I wanted to see the baby's face. How's the baby doing? I tried sending that, but there was no reply from Marissa. She completely ignored my messages and sent another request for shopping. It felt like I was being treated like a servant. Sure, I had told Tyler, let me know if you need anything, out of kindness to help them with their first time parenting. But with Marissa, it felt like she only saw me as a handy housekeeper. I continued to support Marissa. Every month, I deposited money into the account she specified for living expenses. Yet she never expressed gratitude, not even a simple email. Thinking it was pointless to contact Marissa, I reached out to Tyler once. I don't need to meet, but I'd like to see a picture of the baby. Soon after, I didn't hear from Tyler, but I received an email from Marissa.
Right now, parenting is overwhelming. I can't think about my in-laws.
I was shocked by her thoughtless response. I had been supporting Marissa out of concern for her future, yet here I was facing such cold treatment. With that kind of reaction, I could hardly find the motivation to help her anymore. Tyler did reply eventually, but his message showed he didn't know the situation at all.
I'm at work, so could you send that to Marissa?
If I told Tyler everything now, would we finally get to see the baby? I thought about it, but I didn't have the courage to follow through. As I felt frustrated and started to wonder if Marissa was really saving any money, I continued to send the monthly support. After that, Tyler would occasionally reach out and send baby pictures, but the days of not seeing the baby or Tyler continued. And then 3 years passed. I began to think I might never get to see the baby. Kenny and I had half given up, but one day I received a call from Tyler.
Marissa suggested we invite both sets of parents for a meal to celebrate our kid's birthday. Are you and Mom free?
We were surprised by Tyler's unexpected words. We never imagined Marissa would invite us. Kenny and I were genuinely happy. Of course, we'd love to join. It's been 3 years since I last saw the baby, so our grandson must be 3 years old now. It feels like he's grown up so fast, but I would be happy if we could celebrate together. What should I bring for the celebration?
Should I buy a popular toy? I need to check with Tyler too.
The two of us were excitedly planning for the day. Then came the day of the birthday party. My husband and I arrived at Tyler and Marissa's house as planned. With my heart racing, I pressed the doorbell.
It's open, so please come in.
I heard Marissa's voice, so I opened the front door. I had an idea of what to expect, but Marissa was not there to greet us. As we walked toward the living room, I saw Marissa leaning on the table, looking at her smartphone. "Thank you for having us." When I said that, Marissa slowly looked up and smiled brightly.
Thank you for coming. Your seats are over here.
However, at the designated seats, there were no dishes or glasses set up, let alone any food. While there were plenty of those items at the table for the grandson and Tyler, had they forgotten to prepare for us? Since Marissa showed no sign of moving, I took off my jacket and stood up. "Marissa, can I help you with the cooking?"
Huh, that's fine. It's already done. We just need to serve it.
Without even looking at me, Marissa waved her hand dismissively. At that moment, my husband and I finally noticed something odd. The house was unusually quiet. Tyler wasn't there, and I couldn't hear the grandson at all. We exchanged glances in surprise.
Marissa, where are Tyler and your son?
They're at the park right now. They might not be back for another 30 minutes.
I couldn't believe what Marissa was saying. She had to know we were coming today. After all, it was Tyler who called to invite us. Why aren't they home? It's already past the time we agreed on. I couldn't help but ask, and Marissa responded with a creepy smile.
I asked you to come earlier than planned. I wanted to have a proper talk with you.
A talk? I nervously asked, not understanding her true intentions.
Well, since it's you guys, I knew you wouldn't notice. I only prepared enough food for our family.
Marissa said that with a mocking tone. My husband and I couldn't hide our shock. What does that mean? Before I could ask again, my husband grabbed my arm. Then he pointed to the table. At the end of where Kenny was pointing, 4 quarters were left lying carelessly. And it was on the seat that was assigned to us.
Why are there quarters here?
When I asked, Marissa shot me a nasty smile.
If you want to eat so badly together, just use them to buy whatever you like.
The moment we saw her expression, we understood everything. This had to be Marissa's way of messing with us. I couldn't help but glare at Marissa's smug face. So, does this mean we're not family?
Of course, you're just Tyler's parents, and to me, you're complete strangers with no blood connection.
Kenny and I listened in silence. I felt an anger and sadness I had never experienced before, but more than that, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Even though I hadn't seen Tyler and the grandson in a while, I had thought it was okay as long as the whole family was healthy. But after being treated like this by Marissa, I could no longer maintain such a calm mindset. Our hearts were not so big that we could just stay quiet. It's time to stop the financial support.
So, we can stop the financial support now, right?
When Kenny confirmed this, Marissa glared at us.
Stop the financial support? That goes against our agreement.
But if you're saying we're not family, I can't send money to a stranger. I think it's better if we just don't involve ourselves with each other. When I retorted, Marissa clicked her tongue in annoyance.
Kenny is one thing, but Linda, you're just a stay-at-home mom, right? How can you talk to someone like me, a lawyer's secretary, like that?
What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Marissa.
What are you talking about?
Isn't it true? Just doing housework at home is something anyone can do. I really don't want to hear opinions from someone like that.
With her casual insults, both Kenny and I were left speechless. The discomfort I felt during our first dinner together was because of this. She probably looks down on me quite a bit. Yet, despite looking down on me, the fact that she was still asking for money seemed contradictory.
I should mention, though, the help you guys provide isn't even a significant amount. You should be grateful I didn't complain.
Marissa unleashed her selfish claims as if a dam had burst. So it wasn't a significant amount, so you didn't let me see our grandson. I couldn't help but snap back, and Marissa's lips curled into a creepy smile.
Did you finally get it? Now get out of here already.
Marissa shouted this loudly. Then she leaned in closer to us.
I'll let them know you two had other plans and couldn't make it. So feel free to leave. I only want to celebrate with family.
Without hiding her ugly true nature, Marissa said this with a malicious grin. Kenny and I were left speechless by Marissa's outrageous words. We never expected her to be so twisted and so openly trying to exclude us. We didn't argue any further and left the scene, following Marissa's lead.
I can't hold back anymore. I need to tell Tyler the truth.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for the grandson, but let's take advantage of the timing when the other parents are coming. Until now, we had been sending money thinking it was for the best, but we had reached our limit. Since Marissa was the secretary to her own father, she likely felt superior and behaved arrogantly. But I wasn't the type to just stay quiet. I quickly took out my smartphone and called Tyler. At the same time, Kenny called someone else.
Hello, Mom, what's up?
Tyler, there's something I've been keeping quiet about. When I said that, Tyler seemed to sense something just from my voice and asked,
Is something wrong?
I told him to bring Marissa over to our house. Then Tyler said he'd be right there. 20 minutes later, just as promised, Tyler showed up at our house with Marissa. Not just Marissa. It seemed her father had come along too.
I left our son with Marissa's mother. Don't worry, it was just before the birthday party was about to start.
Tyler whispered that to me. For now, we let everyone in. Marissa was clearly in a bad mood, but her father looked pale and was shaking. It was probably because Kenny had explained the situation to him earlier. I took a moment to recount all the financial support we had given to Marissa and all the mistreatment we had endured over the past 3 years. Marissa seemed desperate to keep it a secret, as she shouted to interrupt me every time I spoke.
She is lying. She's trying to make me look like the bad guy.
However, Tyler and Marissa's father managed to keep her in check.
I was told by Marissa that she'd send the pictures of the kid herself.
Tyler said, his face turning pale after hearing everything.
I've only received pictures of the grandson once a year, and whenever I ask Tyler, Marissa sends snarky comments to Linda.
What's that about?
Tyler was left speechless, which was understandable. He had probably been working hard, with hardly any time off. And if Marissa had offered to be our contact, Tyler wouldn't have tried to send anything. We were stunned by how cunning Marissa's schemes were.
I sincerely apologize for my daughter's behavior.
In the midst of all this, Marissa's father apologized deeply. And with a face that looked like he was about to cry, he said,
I'm so sorry for causing trouble for Kenny and Linda like this.
Marissa gasped when she heard that.
Dad, why are you sucking up to them so much?
These folks are my respected ones. You should apologize too.
Marissa's father said this while pushing down Marissa's head, urging her to apologize.
Why do I have to apologize? Linda is just a stay-at-home mom, and there's nothing respectable about that.
What are you talking about? Kenny was our ace when I was still working as a pilot, and Linda was an admirable flight attendant. They made way more money than you ever could.
Upon hearing the truth from her own father, Marissa's face turned pale.
Dad, were you a pilot?
But for certain reasons, I gave up being a pilot and aimed to become a lawyer. Kenny is still active, but I looked up to both him and Linda.
Marissa's father was a younger pilot to Kenny. I had flown with him a few times and, of course, had conversations with him. However, at the time of Tyler and Marissa's wedding, he asked us,
Please don't tell my daughter that I was a pilot.
The reason was probably related to why he had quit being a pilot. He had gotten sick just a year after becoming a pilot and ended up resigning. His health issues were symptoms of severe stress-induced stomach pain, and it was determined that continuing as a pilot would be difficult. However, he didn't give up and studied hard to become a lawyer, successfully achieving his dream. Kenny and I agreed to keep the understanding that we both knew each other's faces. I wondered if this would help Marissa understand a bit better. As I thought this and glanced at Marissa, she suddenly said,
"But if she was an admirable flight attendant, shouldn't she have saved up a bit more? Yet she only gave me pocket change."
Could she really be saying that? I was taken aback by her words. After everything said around her, how could she still say something like that? She really seemed to only care about her own interests. As I hesitated on how to respond, Tyler spoke up.
Hey, what's this about getting financial support? This is the first I'm hearing that you're getting money from my parents.
When Tyler glared at Marissa, she looked down, drenched in sweat, as if realizing she had messed up. But his anger wasn't subsiding.
If you're just living normally, my salary alone should be more than enough to get by, right?
Tyler said with a puzzled expression.
I want to save for the future.
Marissa made the same excuse she had given us, but Tyler wasn't buying it.
Well then, show me the bank statement right now.
He reached out to Marissa, urging her to show him the bank statement.
It's at home.
If the savings are in a joint account, you can check the balance on your smartphone, right? How much do you have saved up now? Or do you have another account?
Tyler asked with a smile.
Exactly. It's in another account.
Marissa easily flashed a smile in response.
Well then, let's go get it together.
Tyler replied clearly, still maintaining his smile. At first, she tried to dodge the issue, but realizing it was futile, she handed her smartphone over to Tyler.
Where's your savings?
After checking the balance, Tyler showed me the screen with a look of disbelief. Upon closer inspection, the amount displayed on the smartphone was only about $10. It seemed Marissa hadn't saved anything at all. Though she was trying to wriggle out of the situation, it was too late for any excuses. I didn't want to hear her words anymore. Since we're not family, Marissa will have to repay the full amount as a stranger. I'll send you a proper bill, so please take care of it. With a sigh, I said this, and Marissa's eyes went wide.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to treat you all as family from now on. I'll introduce you to the kid and even cook for you, so please don't say that.
Enough. After everything you've done, who would want to be family with you? My wife has been tolerating this just because you were chosen by Tyler.
Marissa was trying to curry favor with me and Kenny, but Kenny rejected her attempts. Promises to introduce the grandkids or provide meals held no value to me at this point. Watching the whole scene unfold, Marissa's father turned pale and apologized.
I'm truly sorry. I will definitely make my daughter repay the money given as support.
That's impossible. Don't make decisions on your own.
Marissa was still barking, but her father and Tyler managed to stop her.
No matter how impossible it seems, you have no right to refuse. We need to find out how the original savings were spent too. Depending on how they were used, you understand, right?
Tyler, with a look I had never seen before, said this menacingly. 2 weeks later, Tyler decided to divorce Marissa. It turned out she had been financially supporting a host, quickly using up both her own earnings and the allowance from Tyler. A host. So you've been giving money to him since we got married.
Seems like she had been going to him even before marriage. But the money from you was also spent on beauty treatments, designer bags, and clothes. Apparently, it was to get compliments from her main host.
I felt dizzy hearing Tyler's words. I couldn't believe she had used the support money for such vanity. I truly couldn't understand what she was thinking. I heard Marissa had been acting like a host's girlfriend and was quite well known at the club. That's how she had convinced us to seek financial help. Her title as her father's legal secretary seemed just for show, as she had been leaving the child with her own mother during her maternity leave and repeatedly visiting the host. Tyler had grown tired of Marissa and decided to divorce her.
I've decided to take custody. It seems Marissa had been completely relying on her mom and hadn't been parenting at all.
Tyler said this while holding his 3-year-old son. Seeing Tyler lovingly holding his child made me feel like I could cry. I might finally be seeing the scenery I had longed to see.
I was so busy with work that I didn't notice any changes in Marissa, though.
I'm sorry we stayed quiet too. We only wanted to help you, but it ended up ruining everything. When I replied like this, Tyler shook his head as if to deny it.
I liked Marissa, but I thought there was no way I could live with someone who looks down on family.
The moment I heard those words, I couldn't hold back my tears. I couldn't stop the tears mixed with anxiety and relief. Tyler and Marissa got divorced, but there were still things to take care of. My husband and I demanded repayment from Marissa for the money we had sent her over the years. Of course, this was not a legal process, but we approached Marissa's family instead. Marissa hesitated, but her father immediately agreed to the payment. Tyler also claimed compensation for Marissa's extravagant spending. Since her father quickly agreed to this as well, Marissa had no choice but to pay. It seems Marissa had accumulated quite a bit of debt, as she repaid Tyler and us the money she had squandered all at once. After that, she was promptly disowned by her parents. Desperate, she moved in with the host she had been supporting, but the host, who had only been kind as part of his business, certainly wouldn't deal with a broke Marissa. She was quickly discarded and ended up wandering without a place to stay. Now, she seems to be selling off all the designer items she bought in bulk and juggling several part-time jobs to make ends meet. I learned all this from the messages Marissa sent to Tyler. Marissa, broken by a life completely opposite to what she was used to, called Tyler, saying she didn't want the divorce after all. However, Tyler never answered, and eventually, he blocked her calls. It seems he also blocked her messages, so Marissa probably has no way to reach him anymore. To completely cut ties with Marissa, he decided not to ask for child support. It's clear that she can't live a normal life likely to repay all the money she has squandered. But that's no longer our concern. Tyler started living with us. He moved into a spacious house to match our living arrangement. Since Marissa knew about the old house, Tyler suggested us to take the plunge and move. Thanks to that, we can now live without fear of Marissa. Our little grandson now goes to preschool and has made many friends. We are doing our best to help with raising our grandson. Tyler makes time to be with his son, but he sometimes has to work overtime or on weekends. So, I go to pick up our grandson from preschool.
I'm going to draw a picture with Grandpa and Grandma next time. Can't wait to show you.
Our grandson smiled and told me that even now, Marissa's parents still see our grandson, and it seems the child understands both sets of grandparents well. We want to continue to warmly watch over our grandson's growth as both families. Tyler, having just divorced, often says he's done with marriage. For now, he continues to work as a lawyer while raising his child, and hopes to become independent one day. Improving his skills while raising a child might not be easy, but I have complete faith that with Tyler's abilities, he can achieve his dream. By the way, it seems Marissa's father is still working hard at the law firm to make sure Marissa doesn't attack Tyler. If she does show up, he's apparently there to act as a bodyguard to send her away. He has done nothing wrong, so I hope he continues his work as a lawyer. Though Tyler's marriage caused some painful experiences, we have now regained our peaceful days. Recently, I've been thinking about working to improve my own skills. I can't let the younger folks outshine me. Thinking this way, I keep moving forward and doing my best today.